Okay, let's dive right into today's explainer. The 9-year funnel, the psychological operation against Pavana. We're tracking an unbelievable 9-year timeline of digital coercive control. Our sources map out exactly how a highly coordinated psychological operation systematically dismantled one woman's reality. We're going to examine the very specific tactics used to recruit, isolate, and ultimately break a target named Paula, who was known in this digital ecosystem as Pavana. It's a truly fascinating, if, absolutely harrowing look at the mechanics of digital manipulation.
Welcome home. You are in God's head now. Just let that sink in for a second. This chilling quote really sets the stakes for us today. This was an actual message sent to Paula, showing the exact moment her handlers snapped the trap shut, pulling her into this private digital enclave where they had absolute control over her reality.
So, you might be wondering, how does a simple like on a song somehow lead to a 9-year nightmare of psychological control? Well, we're going to walk step by step through what is essentially a true crime digital thriller. We'll start from the very first click back in 2017 and follow it all the way to a massive climax involving the police, a hospital, and eventually the courtroom.
The sources outline a perfectly executed 4-step operation. Step 1, the digital scout. Step 2, isolation via proton mail. Step 3, the engineered breakdown. And Step 4, weaponized lawfare. Here's how the timeline stacks up. We've got the scouting phase in June 2017, proton mail isolation in July, the breakdown hitting right on September 8th, and the Epworth Hospital crisis peaking on October 25th. Now, what's really wild here is the terrifying speed of this initial timeline. Even though the harassment spans 9 years, it took only a few short months to push Paula from initial contact straight into a severe mental crisis. Let's break down how this escalated so fast. Mid-June 2017, the scouting phase begins. It literally all started when Paula simply hearted a track on a page called Sophia Music, which was run by a man named Thomas Schoenberger. This seemingly innocent little interaction acted as the initial hook. Thomas replied ominously that they had expected her and that she had arrived, instantly framing this completely random digital encounter as some sort of predestined spiritual event. Using this Sophia Music identity as a front, Schoenberger immediately started data harvesting. Look at the details extracted here. He mined intimate information about Paula's husband, Jesse, noting his profession as a small business owner and plumber. He dug into their financial assets, discovering they owned several properties. And crucially, he pinpointed Paula's psychological state, that she was feeling spiritually out of place or, late to the game. He took all that harvested information and systematically divided her world. On the left side, he elevated Paula, telling her she was this misunderstood creative genius with a grand destiny. But on the right side, he degraded her husband, Jesse. He labeled him a mere plumber who was stuck in the matrix, basically telling her Jesse was completely incapable of understanding her brilliance.
Which brings us to the proton mail kill switch. To cement this isolation, Thomas convinced Paula that her shared Comcast email was somehow unsafe and that she needed a secret proton mail account. Now, this wasn't about security at all. It was a calculated move to create a private world that locked Jesse out of her digital life entirely, completely removing his grounded perspective from the equation. Once they were behind those closed digital doors, Thomas executed a handoff. He passed Paula to a handler named Lisa Clapier, who went by Pistis Sophia. Lisa operated as an awakening coach. Our sources define awakening coaching as a manipulative tactic using extreme information overload that criminalizes logic and frames critical thoughts as mere deception. Lisa flooded Paula for up to 18 hours a day with bizarre esoteric conspiracy tales, actively training her to ignore her own common sense. Under all this intense pressure, Paula started suffering severe abdominal pains. But instead of saying, "Hey, maybe you should see a doctor," Lisa brilliantly, yet totally maliciously, reframed the medical distress. She wrote, "Mother is going through another birth of sorts, and the result is glorious beyond measure." She effectively convinced Paula that her physical agony was just birthing pains for her new spiritual self, keeping her away from real medical help. And that leads right into September 8, 2017, the breakdown. Lisa had established September 8th as this massively significant date in their lore. Driven by those prophecies, plus the relentless 18-hour days of indoctrination, Paula suffered a complete mental breakdown on that exact date. She later described her mind as experiencing an Error 404 switch glitch, feeling entirely broken by the sheer chaos of it all. The communications from Paula around this time are incredibly fragmented and scary. Listen to this heartbreaking plea. "It hurts. The hurts hurts. Don't make me see this." It really illustrates the visceral, sensory overload she was experiencing. She felt like she was being passed from person to person in a digital hall of mirrors, having nightmares where the line between actual reality and their cultish games just completely collapsed.
So, what happens when a target's reality finally breaks? Well, as Paula's delusions escalated into terrifying visions of being a torturer, the digital abuse violently spilled over into the real world. By October 25th, the crisis hits its absolute peak. Her extreme delusions are so alarming that Paula's son has to call the police. The police mandate an immediate psychiatric evaluation, and Jesse rushes Paula straight to Epworth Hospital for emergency admission to finally get her some professional help.
But here is the Epworth Hospital crisis and the fake doctor incident. This is where the story takes its most audacious turn yet. Right at this critical moment, Thomas Schoenberger actively intervened to block her admission to the hospital. He allegedly posed as a doctor to the admissions staff to stop the clinical intervention. He had already groomed Paula to call him doc, and he messaged her, "You need serious rest. Literally, it will all be okay, promise." By literally countermanding the police and the medical staff, he protected his brainwashing funnel from any real medical scrutiny and kept her trapped in his system.
Now, moving forward a few months to January 2018, the Judas betrayal. Paula had survived what she described as being poisoned near to death by these psychological games. She finally started waking up, seeking the truth, and looking for answers from outsiders.
And this perfectly illustrates the abuser's playbook. On the left, we have honesty, Paula finally asking totally valid questions about the manipulation. On the right, betrayal. The second she stepped out of line, Thomas instantly flipped the script, labeling her a backstabber and criminalizing her search for the truth.
He lashed out, saying, "Go have fun with B-Box and the other poisonous people." He viciously labeled her a Judas, completely discarded her because she was now a liability, and then had the audacity to blame the entire breakdown on her own supposed mental illness.
Fast forward, 2025 Michigan Lawfare. You'd think the nightmare ended there once she was discarded, right? No way. Jumping forward 9 years to today, the psychological operation hasn't stopped. It's just mutated into weaponized legal harassment.
3. That is the number of active lawsuits Thomas Schoenberger currently has filed in Michigan courts. It's a calculated strategy to continue dragging Paula and her family through a manufactured hell. Since he can't control her digitally anymore, he's using the courts as his new weapon. Look at this. He's filing multiple baseless lawsuits, literally claiming the victim is the one stalking and defaming him. He's even suing over her own legal jurisdictional defenses. The whole point is to drain the family's financial resources, forcing them to spend thousands just to defend themselves against his relentless claims.
Which brings us to a final provocative question. Will the legal system ever catch up to the realities of digital coercive control? When we look back at these 9 years of unchecked harassment, from a simple manipulated Spotify like to severe mental breakdowns, all the way to endless courtroom battles today, we really have to ask ourselves, how long will our legal systems allow the perpetrators of digital brainwashing to weaponize the courts against their own victims? It's a hugely sobering thought, and one that absolutely demands our attention as our digital and physical lives just keep blending together.